Welcome back to OATS Uncut. We keep our conversations real, relatable, raw, honest, unfiltered, and mostly uncut. I love to pick brains of the younger generation because they are our future. So it's very important to know what's going on in their heads. So for that, today I have Ava to brainstorm with. Ava, welcome back.
Thank you.
So we had this conversation previously, and I was very intrigued that you picked this topic. And your topic is what? Tell.
What we owe the future generation.
You are a very young generation right now. First of all, how did this thought come to you? Why are you suddenly, do you feel like an old soul inside that you are thinking of the future generation?
I feel like there's so many problems in our world today, and how we have to prepare the future generation. We can actually make a change, and to keep the world from getting worse, we have to make it a better place so that the future generation can succeed.
That is true, but just to kind of tell you where we come from, this generation, I feel we have been playing catch up because things have moved so rapidly in our generation from no technology or zero technology to AI. It is a lot that we've covered. And I think you were born, you came into this world with all of that with you. And I think your challenge, that's why you're probably thinking ahead, whereas we were just thinking of being able to know what your generation was dealing with or working with. So what are your concerns? I mean, is it a concern or is it a promising looking future that you envision? What is your vision? What's happening?
Well, like you said, AI is taking over a lot of jobs, and how students today are relying a lot on AI for education and in schools. And I feel like if we set the future generation up with all these tools and there's no limitations or anything to keep them from using it, then they're going to heavily rely on AI, and that's just going to make it harder for them to succeed in the rest of their lives.
That is true, because then you're not using your own brain as much. Everything is so quick on your fingertips. I have to say, I've kind of started enjoying a little bit, because anything that I'm thinking of, I punch in a few prompts and the stuff that I get back is just super brilliant. And I think to myself, and I think with over time, when you use a particular AI tool over and over again, it starts to understand you, which is kind of creepy. Because if I asked AI a question, or ChatGPT or Claude or whichever one, it actually comes back and says, "It is so Vineeta." What are you talking about? So I think to that, I mean, I'm laughing about it, but I know there have been some serious incidents where people have actually relied on AI for therapy and have gotten into trouble, or maybe a life here and there was lost because of the misguidance of the AI. So, but I can't understand, how can humans not understand that this is just a tool that you're playing with? It's not a real thing.
Yeah, and also there's no limitations for students. It's not banned on our computers to use AI, and there's nothing that keeps children from using it. So they're just going to start relying more and more on it.
So is the school preparing you, or how are you preparing yourself or your generation to deal with the pros and cons of AI?
I feel like there's not that much being done. There's just a lot of people are raising awareness about it and saying that you shouldn't completely rely on AI, but there's not that much, it's not banned or anything, and there's no big limitations on using AI for us.
Right, and I'm also thinking how far it'll go. Right?
It's definitely going to take over a lot of jobs when I grow up, so I have to think about it when I'm choosing what I want to do to make sure that it's not going to get taken over by AI.
It's not something that AI can take over. That is a scary thought. The options of jobs that probably my generation may have had. And actually, even for communication now, there are tools, some tools which will actually count the number of ums and ahs that you deliver in a conversation, in speech, you can record speaking into it and it will actually count. So there was this, I've never used it, but I was approached by almost about 2 years ago actually by, I didn't know what AI was then. I thought it was just another app or software that they were developing, and it probably was then, but it was AI based. And they said, would you like to share our, first you test it out yourself and then share it with your students. It'll count their ums and ahs. But my thing was that nobody's going to sit down. I mean, a grown-up may practice their presentation and speak into it and allow it to count the numbers of ums and filler sounds basically. But a child is not going to do that. They will just go back to ums, ahs and likes when they're in a casual setup and hope that they can control them in a formal setup. So I think the fear that how many jobs it might kill is definitely real. So do you guys talk about it in school?
Not in school, but definitely at home with my parents. Like, they want to make sure that the area that I choose to go into is not going to get heavily affected by AI. Like, my mom got laid off, and that's because I think they weren't getting that much a need for her, and she doesn't want that to happen to me for when I choose my job.
Wow, it is scary. Actually, on that note, there are a lot of companies that are enforcing people to write their own emails. They said, enough of AI communication, and you can tell, especially if you've known a person from before and they never wrote so beautifully and now they are. So I think it's going to make the human brain more redundant. So that is definitely a big fear. So my alibi is that I used to write well before, and so even if I'm taking help of AI, which I sometimes do, I mean, I'm going to keep up with the times, right? So at least I make sure that whatever I get is still me, because I have a defined style. What else is your concern about the future that you said? What kind of a future are we leaving behind?
Also, along with AI, social media is definitely a big, there's nothing being limited about social media, and 5-year-olds or elementary school children are using social media, and they're getting exposed to so many stuff that, when I was in elementary school, I wasn't exposed to any of that stuff, but I feel like they're not having the time to just be a child and just live their lives in elementary school, and they're just maturing so much more quickly. And also, gun control, issues like that, there's not really much being done, and in schools, school shootings, there should definitely be more laws preventing that so that the future generation is not in a chaotic world.
It's actually mind-boggling for me that we become so used to gun shootings in schools, in malls, and in places of worship. It used to shake us and rattle us when it used to happen occasionally. Now I think we've stopped counting because there are so many, and you just move on, and then occasionally when you see those messages come back in front of your eyes, the Sandy Hook promise, because 6-year-olds, first graders were shot in the Sandy Hook shootout. Whether it's mental health, yes, mental health is a problem, but you give a gun in the hand of somebody who has mental health issues, you are the one we are the ones who are making that misjudgment. If that person had a knife in their hand, could they have killed so many people? No, they couldn't have. So yes, while we address mental health, gun control is a huge problem. And why do you think we are unable to address it?
I feel like it's also money, because the companies want to make money, and maybe we just don't want to accept that we have to limit gun control rights.
You think humanity is being lost somewhere, and capitalism and businesses and all of that is taking precedence over basic human dignity and human common sense? It is depressing. It is depressing. And on the other hand, what recently happened when this one gentleman was carrying a gun on him because he has the right to bear arms, he wasn't using it, but he was shot by the Immigration and Customs Enforcement, Alex Petty, and he just had a gun on him. He wasn't using it. He hadn't taken it out, but he was trying to film something. He was trying to protect somebody who was being grabbed by the border control people, and as they were fighting him, jostling with him, they found the gun on him, and they shot him just because he had a gun on him, which was his amendment right. It is very scary. And I also feel that even our leaders, our politicians, the way they talk about each other so disrespectfully, and while I know how harassment, intimidation and bullying is enforced in schools for you guys, there is a zero tolerance policy in schools, then why do we have why don't we have zero tolerance in adults? I mean, should grown-ups not be accountable? Should our leaders not be accountable?
We need to make sure that the leaders are good and good examples for the future generation, so that they grow up and know how to act and aren't like, they know how to make a change and they know how to be successful, and they don't put other people down, and they act right.
And that's what my argument is sometimes with my friends, because if we are arguing over this particular subject, and they've supported a particular person who is very very disrespectful of people and uses really bad language to talk about his opponents or people who disagree with him, basically. Then my friends argue that no, his policies are great and America first and all of that. And my thing is that yes, but my leader should be somebody I can look up to. My leader should be somebody I can try to emulate. I should be impressed by the way they carry themselves as a person also. A good human being first, and then a good leader. So I think that basic sense of human dignity is completely lost right now. And my fear for your generation is, I know you are talking about it, but my biggest fear for your generation is that human dignity and respect and grace is being lost. So if you grow up watching all of that behavior amongst the leaders of your country, and getting away with it, then you probably might think that is the right way to do it. And it is scary. What else is bothering you in terms of the future?
Definitely education. Like, about 130 million children globally don't have access to an education, and that's definitely something that we have to focus more on, so that they can learn and go to college and make their own lives. And also how a lot of schools, like my school doesn't, but a lot of schools don't provide the proper resources for their children, for their kids, and then they don't have access to everything to the support that they need to have access to be successful.
So right now the public education system is per the town. So when people are looking to buy a house, they look for a town which has a good school system, because that town is collecting those taxes and the town decides autonomously how much money they want to put towards education. So do you think that the public school system should be evened out across the country, and instead of having, New Jersey schools are the best, but this particular town is the best in New Jersey, it should be even keel for all entire New Jersey state, and even actually schools all over the country?
Yeah, I think all students should have access to the same resources and the same schools throughout the US.
In addition to that, I also feel, Ava, that we made education very expensive. The biggest concern that I had when my children were going to colleges, my thing was that it is so expensive. You manage to take loans and get by, and then hope that you'll find a job later and be able to pay off the loans. But going back to the first point of AI, there is no guarantee you'll get a job after college. So if you have taken loans, how do you pay them back if you are struggling to find a job? So why, can we make the education, college education, a little more affordable so that students, it's not burdensome to seek education. It shouldn't be a second thought. It should be a done thing that yes, high school and then college, have to go for college. So yeah, it is very, very unaffordable right now. It's just going more and more expensive.
Yeah, and it's really hard to get a scholarship unless you're like the top student. So if someone, let's say, got into a really good school like Harvard, but it's about like $90,000 a year and they can't go, then that's going to be worse for them, and then they have to go to a worse school, and that just makes it harder for them to get the education that they deserve and that they worked hard for.
And it's a trickle-down effect. So you want to go to a particular school because the stamp matters, which school you've been to, which college you've come out of. But at the same time, if you can't afford that, you will probably spend a little more time of your life proving to the world your worth and proving to the world that you may not have gone to a Harvard or a Yale or one of the Ivies, but you are probably smarter than the people who came out of that. It would be a struggle to find that opportunity to prove yourself. So yes, it is definitely a concern. And I don't know, would you think you'd probably mobilize your generation and reach out to the leaders to do something about it?
I don't think there's really anyone who's willing to make education cheaper and make it more accessible. But I feel like if I knew that it would make a change, I definitely would try and do something. But I just don't think that anybody's going to change anything about it.
I think the hope is when the alums who give endowments, and sometimes the alums come back and they fund the school for a whole new wing of something. So, and if the alums are paying money to support the institution that they came out of and they did well, then probably in those endowments they could also write certain number of scholarships for deserving candidates. That okay, if you are taking 1,000 students this year, we'll give scholarships to 100.
Yeah, there's definitely more scholarships though. So that's like a positive.
Yeah, I think that used to be the case many, many years ago, probably a generation probably before mine as well, that you would be offered free ride if you were they were able to identify students even coming from poor countries if they were really smart and promising. And the institutions here, the elite institutions, would actually welcome them with a free ride. So there are those programs, but it's very hard to, I guess, to get to that point to be seen and recognized. But the thing is, like I said a minute ago, things will only change if you guys do something about it. It's one thing to identify, but the other thing is to be mobilized and do something. The first thing is conversation, which is happening. So the more this is talked about, the more awareness will be created. And with the awareness, hopefully some passion and energy and fire will be lit, which can further take this cause ahead and compel the leaders to write laws that can change things. Yeah, definitely. Anything else that's on your mind about the concerns for future?
No, I think that's it. Basically.
Okay. So, well, all I can say is hang in there. Each generation has had its struggles. We've had our struggles, you will have your own. The struggles are different, but it is a struggle nonetheless. So, sometimes I feel your generation is slightly emotionally not as resilient as we were. I don't know if you observe that. But I've had this conversation with other people as well, that we probably also went through a lot. You guys were, born here. We were not, like me, I'm still an immigrant. I was not born here. I came here as an adult. So assimilating and establishing yourself, understanding the system, giving back to the system, all of that. So it has been a journey. I take it as an adventure. It has been a wonderful adventure Has it been the greatest? No, but then everywhere it is going to be adventurous, no matter where in the world you go. So we'll just keep doing what we can do to effect change and stay resilient, keep talking, keep inspiring, and keep mobilizing, and change will come. Yeah. Thank you for bringing this topic today to me, because I think a lot of people probably go through that thought in their heads, and sometimes it's insightful to pick the brains of this generation, because they are our future, but at the same time they are already considering the legacy that they will leave behind one day for their future generations. It's very heartening to hear. So again, thank you for watching. Thank you for giving us company today. Keep thinking, keep inspiring, keep mobilizing, and keep effecting change. Thank you for joining OATS Uncut today. We shall meet again.
OATS out.
OATS out.